G'day everyone, hope you're doing well. I want to talk about something that's been on my mind this week. I've been reading a book called I Eat the Stars by Sarah Wilson. That's the book. It's a pretty cover, isn't it? I got it from Big W. Anyway, in one chapter, she talks about something known as the Stockdale Paradox. Now, I'd heard of the term before, but I never really stopped to think about it. And honestly, the more I've thought about it over the last few days, the more I've realised it challenges something many of us have been taught our whole lives. That hope is always a good thing. That hope is what gets us through difficult times. But what if that's not entirely true? What if sometimes hope can actually make things harder? Now, before you click away and think I've completely lost my marbles, please hear me out, because this isn't a video about being pessimistic. No, it's actually the opposite. So Sarah Wilson tells the story of James Stockdale. He was a prisoner of war during the Vietnam War, and for 7 years he basically experienced 7 years of uncertainty, 7 years of suffering, 7 years of not knowing if he'd make it home, which is pretty sad. Anyways, after he was released from the POW camps, someone asked him a fascinating question. Who didn't survive? And who were the prisoners that struggled the most? And his answer surprised everyone. He said, the ones that didn't survive, the ones that struggled the most were the optimists. And you know what the optimists are like. They're people that are always, have a very bright outlook for their future. They always rely on hope. Now, hearing that the ones that didn't make it, hearing that the ones that struggled the most were the optimists, it shocked me. I thought that the POWs in the camp he was in that struggled the most would have been the pessimists, the ones that don't have much hope. Surely the optimists would have coped best, right? But James Stockdale explained that these men would tell themselves, the optimists I'm referring to, the optimists would say to themselves, well, we'll be home by Christmas. Christmas would come and go, and then they'd say, we'll be home by Easter. Surely, Easter would come and go, then Thanksgiving, then Christmas again. Every time reality failed to match their expectations, they suffered another crushing disappointment. Eventually, many of the optimists simply lost the will to keep going. And geez, that story hit me hard, because I realised how often we do exactly the same thing in our everyday life. Like, just think about how much of our lives, right, are built around future hope. We tell ourselves all sorts of hopeful things like, things will get better when I retire, or things will get better when I lose weight. I know I've done that. Things will get better when I meet that special somebody, or things will get better when I've got more money. Things will get better when the government fixes things. Or things will get better when the economy improves. Or things will get better when my circumstances change. And there's nothing wrong with wanting a better future. The problem comes when we become emotionally dependent on a future, right, that may not arrive exactly how we want it. And let's face it, right, like life doesn't always work to our timetable. It never has. And maybe that's why so many people seem exhausted these days. It's like we're waiting for life to finally become easier. Meanwhile, life just keeps being life, right? And I don't know about you, but Australia feels like a very different country to the country I grew up in. Like, housing is expensive. Everything costs more. People seem stressed. People seem lonely. Many people are working harder than ever, but somehow are feeling further behind. And if you're over 50, right, you might be looking at retirement and wondering if the numbers are actually going to add up. You might be dealing with health challenges. You might be wondering where the years went. These aren't imaginary problems either. Like, they're real problems that all of us are sort of like going through. And I think sometimes, I think we're encouraged, right, to stay positive when what we really need is to be honest. Not negative, just honest, because there is a difference. One sentence from this book that has really stayed with me is the idea that perhaps we don't need more hope. Perhaps we need more truth. And I know that sounds harsh at first, but the more I think about it, the more freeing it feels. Like, maybe I don't need to hope that life becomes easier anymore. Maybe I just need to accept that life is difficult sometimes, just like it was for those POWs in Vietnam. Maybe I need to accept that life is difficult sometimes. Maybe I don't need to hope that uncertainty just disappears, Maybe uncertainty is simply part of being alive. Maybe I don't need to hope that I'll never struggle again. Maybe struggle is part of the human experience, because once we stop arguing with reality, something interesting happens. We get our energy back. It's like we stop wasting energy, right? Wishing things were different, and start just focusing on what we can actually do today, like right now. Yeah, this idea struck a chord with me because a few months ago I lost my job to a workplace injury, and I'm still dealing with a shoulder injury that needs to be fixed. And I deal with chronic pain while I'm dealing with unemployment and, my future. I've never been so unsure of my future now. And if I'm honest, there are days where I wish I would hurry up and just get back to normal. But reading this book made me wonder if that's actually the wrong way to look at it. Maybe the challenge isn't hoping reality changes tomorrow, maybe the challenge is accepting where I am today, even if it's not where I want to be. And strangely enough, it seems like a much more peaceful way to live. One thing I've noticed as well as I've got older is that certainty becomes harder to find, Like, when you're young, life often feels like a straight line. Work hard, save money, do the right things, everything will work out. And then life happens and you realise, shit, there are no guarantees. And you realise bad things happen to good people. Some dreams come true and some don't. You realise nobody really knows what's around the corner. And maybe wisdom isn't about becoming more certain. Maybe wisdom is becoming more comfortable with uncertainty. Maybe that's what James Stockdale understood. And maybe that's what Sarah Wilson, the author of this book, is pointing towards in her book. Not hopelessness, not optimism, but acceptance. And the courage to face reality exactly how it is. So yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot in the last couple of days. Maybe hope isn't the hero we've always made it out to be. Maybe the real hero, maybe the real superpower, I think is a better word, is learning to face the truth without being crushed by it. To look reality straight in the eye and say, yeah, this is where I am. This is what's happening, but I'm going to keep going anyway. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think. Do you agree? Do you think hope helps us? Or do you think acceptance is actually more powerful? Let me know in the comments. And if you've made it this far, thanks so much for spending a little bit of your day with me. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.